What if everything you thought about money your whole life was holding you back? I woke up this morning, not richer by luck, inheritance, or tech stocks, but because, 50 years ago, I learned 7 mental patterns that quietly rewired my mind for wealth. Patterns most people never discover, even after decades of working hard. Here's the truth: if you're over 50 and still wondering why your savings haven't grown, why investments feel confusing, or why wealth seems just out of reach, it's not your fault. You've been using a mental operating system built for survival, not prosperity. By the end of this video, you'll see the 7 subtle mind tricks billionaires use to protect, grow, and multiply their wealth, tricks you can start applying today, no matter your age. But be warned, some of these ideas will feel counterintuitive. They go against everything you've learned. And that discomfort? That's the first sign your brain is upgrading. Have you ever asked yourself why, despite years of careful planning, your financial life still feels fragile? Why small mistakes seem to cost more than they should? Or why opportunities you thought were perfect end up being nothing more than regrets in the making? Most of us look at money the wrong way. From the moment we start earning, we're told, find the best investment. Save smart. Take calculated risks. But these instructions assume we already have a brain optimized for wealth. The truth is, our minds are wired for survival, not prosperity. And that wiring often leads us straight into loss. This is where inversion thinking comes in. It's the first mind trick I learned, and the one that quietly built the foundation of everything that followed. Inversion is simple, but counterintuitive. Instead of asking, "How do I get rich?" a question that traps most people in guessing, hoping, and chasing trends, you ask the opposite: what guarantees I stay poor? It sounds strange at first, almost negative. But wealth isn't created by chasing perfection. It's preserved and amplified by avoiding catastrophe. Every decision you make carries the potential for subtle disaster, and the richer you get, the more expensive those disasters become. Think back over your own life. The car you bought because it felt right. The job you accepted because of status rather than security. The stock tip you followed because it was hot. Each of these choices may have seemed logical, even smart at the time. But when viewed through the lens of inversion thinking, it becomes clear: these were exactly the types of decisions that quietly chip away at your future wealth. Let me show you exactly how inversion works. Imagine you have a small portfolio, a nest egg you've been building for years. Most people ask, which stock will make me the most money? And so they chase the shiny, the trending, the hyped up opportunity. The result? They sell too early, buy too late, or lose everything when the trend collapses. Now, invert the question. Ask instead, what choices will make me lose money? Suddenly, the path becomes clear. Avoid companies you don't understand. Avoid fads. Avoid debt-fueled risk. Avoid putting money into things you might need immediately. Avoid paying unnecessary fees. Avoid trying to time the market. Avoid emotional decisions. Every wealthy person I've studied, and I mean the kind who never need to worry about money, asks this simple question before every major decision. What's the dumbest possible choice I could make here? Then they make sure not to do it. It's almost boring in its simplicity. Avoiding stupidity is far more effective than chasing brilliance. And yet, this is why so many people over 50 still feel stuck. For decades, they've been rewarded in small ways for following their gut, for doing what felt right, never realizing the subtle, compounding damage. Here's a story that makes it real. One man I knew, call him Robert, was a careful planner. He saved, invested, and read financial news every morning. He thought he was doing everything right. But he had a habit: whenever he felt confident about a stock tip, he jumped in. Excited by the potential, he ignored the risks. Years passed. Small losses accumulated. He sold winners too soon, held losers too long. And by the time he hit 50, he realized his portfolio, which should have been a source of comfort, was only slightly above where it had been 20 years prior. Contrast that with another investor, someone like Charlie Munger himself. Same market. Same economy. Instead of chasing the perfect investment, he spent years identifying the behaviors that guarantee failure. He refused to step outside his circle of understanding. He ignored the social pressure to get rich quick. He never sold out of fear. And over decades, avoiding disaster quietly compounded into enormous wealth. This is the power of inversion thinking. It teaches patience. It forces humility. It turns fear and caution into allies, rather than obstacles. And above all, it shows that wealth isn't about luck, it's about decisions systematically avoiding loss over a lifetime. For you, starting today, inversion thinking can be applied immediately. Before every financial decision, ask yourself, if I do this, how could it fail? Write down every potential misstep, every mistake that could erase years of work. Then simply refuse to make those mistakes. And here's the subtle magic: most people never ask this question. They jump, they hope, they gamble. By doing the opposite, by looking for failure rather than success, you automatically tilt the odds in your favor. Slowly, quietly, almost imperceptibly, wealth begins to grow not from brilliance, but from not being stupid. For those over 50, this is especially powerful. You don't have decades to recover from missteps anymore. Each decision matters more. Each error compounds. And by reprogramming your thinking to avoid catastrophic mistakes, you can protect what you've built and still grow it faster than you imagined possible. Inversion thinking isn't flashy. It doesn't promise overnight gains. But over decades, it turns caution, patience, and disciplined thinking into a fortune that feels almost effortless, because the real work isn't in chasing money, it's in avoiding the ways it can disappear. If inversion thinking is about avoiding catastrophe, the second mind trick circle of competence is about knowing your limits. Wealth isn't just created by what you do right, it's also preserved by what you wisely refuse to touch. And this is where so many people, even highly educated and intelligent ones, stumble. Most of us operate with a dangerous illusion, that we understand more than we actually do. That we can master a complex business, evaluate a stock, or spot the next trend just because it seems obvious. But intelligence alone is no shield. Knowledge without clarity is a liability. Circle of competence is brutally simple, yet profoundly difficult to implement. You must know exactly what you understand deeply and, perhaps more importantly, what you do not understand. Then, you invest, act, and bet only within that circle. Outside it, no matter how tempting, no matter how everyone else praises it, you stay out. Let me give you a story. In the late 1990s, the tech boom was in full swing. Stocks of companies with no profits, no revenue, sometimes no clear business model, were skyrocketing. Everyone around me was making millions or at least losing themselves in the fantasy of it. Friends called me cautious. Journalists mocked me as outdated. They said I was missing the biggest opportunity of a generation. But here's the thing, I didn't understand these companies. I couldn't explain how they made money. I couldn't predict their future earnings. They were outside my circle of competence. I didn't invest. And then the bubble burst. Hundreds of thousands of people, smart people, educated people, lost fortunes. The same people who once mocked my caution were left staring at losses that could have been avoided. Meanwhile, I still had my money intact. This is the stark difference. Knowing your limits protects wealth, often more reliably than chasing gains. The world of investing or business, or real estate, or even personal finance is full of opportunities that look great but carry invisible risk if you don't truly understand them. Here's how to apply this today. Identify your true knowledge. Grab a pen and paper. List 3 things you genuinely understand, not superficially, but deeply. Maybe it's your industry, maybe a type of real estate. Maybe a business model you've worked in for decades. These are your circles. Everything else is outside. Measure twice, act once. When an opportunity arises, ask, does this fall inside my circle? If yes, evaluate the potential returns. If no, pass. This doesn't mean avoiding all risk. It means avoiding risk you don't understand. Resist peer pressure. The hardest part is watching opportunities pass that others claim are sure things. It feels like missing out. You may even feel foolish. But this is temporary embarrassment versus permanent financial loss. Let's make it concrete. Imagine you hear about a friend's new cryptocurrency venture. Everyone is hyped. You don't understand blockchain, the tokenomics, or the market dynamics. It's outside your circle. The wealthy decision isn't maybe I can figure it out later. It's, I don't touch what I don't understand. That simple refusal can save decades of compounded losses. Circle of competence isn't just for investing. It applies to every major decision, buying property, starting a business, even choosing advisors. If you don't understand it completely, you're gambling, not investing. Why this is especially important after 50. Time is no longer on your side. You can't afford mistakes that may take decades to recover. The compounding effect of lost capital works faster against you now. Every decision outside your circle is a potential setback. Every decision inside it is a step toward security, independence, and lasting wealth. But here's the subtle brilliance: staying in your circle doesn't mean stagnation. It doesn't mean avoiding all growth. It means deliberate, calculated growth built on deep understanding, not luck or hype. The returns may appear slower, but they are far more reliable. Over decades, slow and steady decisions compound into results that most people only dream of. Think of it like a ship navigating treacherous waters. The inexperienced sailor may chase every glimmer of gold on the horizon, only to crash on hidden reefs. The wise captain studies the maps, knows the currents, understands the tides, and sails only where the path is clear. You may not reach every treasure, but you reach the shore safely and with a full cargo. The truth is harsh. Most people over 50 have already faced decades of financial decisions. And the mistakes made outside your circle are likely why you haven't built the wealth you hoped for. But it's never too late. By committing to only operate within your circle of competence, you start making decisions that are almost guaranteed to protect and grow what you already have. Remember this. Avoiding mistakes within your circle is far more powerful than chasing brilliance outside it. Most people fail not because they're not smart enough, but because they step into unknown territory blinded by excitement or pressure. Your new rule starting today. Before any major financial decision, ask, do I understand this completely, well enough to teach it to someone else? If yes, proceed, cautiously and strategically. If no, step back, observe, learn, or pass entirely. That is the mindset of billionaires. Not extraordinary talent. Not luck. But clarity about what they know, and discipline about what they don't. If the first mind trick taught you to avoid catastrophic mistakes, and the second taught you to stay inside your circle of competence, the third mind trick opportunity cost teaches you to see the invisible consequences of every decision. Most people think in terms of immediate expense, this costs $20,000, or this investment costs $50,000. But they rarely pause to ask, what could this $20,000 or $50,000 become if invested wisely over decades? Opportunity cost is the silent thief of wealth. Unlike an outright mistake, it doesn't sting immediately. There's no shock, no obvious loss. Instead, it works slowly, invisibly, stealing what could have been. And over 20, 30, or 40 years, it compounds into staggering amounts. Let me illustrate. Imagine you're considering buying a new car. It's shiny, comfortable, feels like a reward for your hard work. You have the cash. Most people stop there. They see the $20,000 price tag and think, I can afford it. Let's buy it. Transaction complete. Satisfaction achieved. But here's the hidden truth, that $20,000 isn't just gone. It's also the opportunity it could have created. Invest $20,000 in a basic index fund earning 8% annually. In 10 years, it grows to roughly $43,000. In 20 years, it's over $93,000. In 30 years, it compounds to nearly $200,000. And if you add even a small, consistent monthly contribution $200 per month, the equivalent of a small car payment, the total after 40 years could surpass $1,100,000. Now consider the choice to buy the car. You didn't just spend $20,000. You spent your potential millionaire future. That's the brutal reality of opportunity cost. And most people never see it because the cost isn't immediate. They don't feel the pain until decades later when they realize their retirement nest egg is far smaller than it could have been. This is why wealthy people think differently. They calculate the invisible price tag of every decision. Before buying, investing, or committing capital, they ask, what could this money become if I let it work instead of spending it today? The answer reshapes behavior. Suddenly, unnecessary purchases, flashy luxuries, and impulsive investments seem frivolous, even reckless. Opportunity cost isn't limited to money, either. It applies to time, energy, and focus. Every hour you spend on something trivial is an hour you could have spent learning, building, or compounding skills. Every project you chase outside your circle of competence consumes attention that could have created meaningful results within your expertise. Here's the trick the wealthy use daily: they see every dollar and every hour as a seed. Will you plant it in fertile ground and let it grow, or scatter it in soil that produces nothing? Think about your current spending. How many choices are you making where the true cost, the missed opportunity, is invisible? How many decisions are made simply to satisfy short-term desire, without regard to decades of compounding potential? Here's a practical exercise you can start today. Identify major spending decisions. Every time you consider a significant purchase or investment, pause. Write down the amount. Calculate potential growth. Project how that money could grow over 10, 20, or 30 years at a reasonable rate of return. Compare and decide consciously. Ask yourself, is the short-term satisfaction worth sacrificing this future potential? This isn't meant to create fear or guilt. It's meant to create awareness. Once you start seeing the invisible consequences of every decision, your thinking upgrades. You stop spending impulsively. You start investing deliberately. You begin to treat every dollar as a tiny but powerful agent of future wealth. And here's the subtle but critical insight: rich people aren't cheap. They're conscious. They understand the trade-offs. They weigh every choice against its long-term impact. Sometimes they still spend money, sometimes they don't. But every choice is deliberate, never impulsive. And over decades, that discipline multiplies wealth in ways that feel almost magical to those who never learned this mental trick. Opportunity cost is also a mindset shift. Most people think, I have $20,000. I can buy the car or I can save it. But the wealthy ask a deeper question: if I buy this car, what am I giving up in potential wealth, freedom, and options over the next 20 to 40 years? That simple reframing changes everything. And this is why the third trick is so powerful for those over 50. The compounding effect of your past decisions becomes painfully clear as you approach retirement. Each dollar not carefully allocated can be the difference between a comfortable life and financial struggle. But if you learn to see opportunity cost clearly today, you still have decades to correct course, to invest wisely, and to create security and independence. So, starting today, make it a habit. Every major financial decision, ask, what am I giving up? Treat the answer seriously. Write it down. Let it shape your choices. Over time, this one mental shift alone can save hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars, simply by avoiding invisible losses. Opportunity cost isn't glamorous. It doesn't make headlines. but it silently, relentlessly separates the wealthy from everyone else. And now, you know it. You can see it. You can act on it. The third trick, opportunity cost, taught you to see the invisible consequences of every decision. The fourth trick, overcoming loss aversion bias, teaches you to manage your emotions when risk and uncertainty appear. Because here's the truth, most people aren't poor because they make bad decisions. They're poor because they fear the losses they imagine more than they pursue the gains they could achieve. Loss aversion is the hidden force that silently erodes wealth. Psychologists have proven it. Losing $1,000 feels almost twice as painful as gaining $1,000 feels good. Your brain is wired to avoid losses, to cling to safety, to resist change. And while this was once a survival mechanism for our ancestors in the wild, it's financial poison in the modern world. Let me show you exactly how this plays out in real life. You invest $5,000 in a stock. A week later, it rises to $8,000. You feel the thrill of success, and because your brain wants to lock in gains, you sell immediately. Safe, right? Wrong. That small gain could have grown into $15,000, $30,000, or far more if you had stayed invested. Now imagine the opposite. You invest $5,000 in a stock. It drops to $3,000. Your brain screams at you to panic. You hold on, hoping it bounces back, and it keeps dropping. You're paralyzed by fear, tied to a decision you made yesterday, letting your ego and emotions dictate your wealth. This is loss aversion at work, and it destroys more fortunes than any bad investment ever could. Here's the hard truth. Rich people train themselves to do the opposite of what loss-averse brains demand. They sell losers immediately when they recognize a mistake, not weeks later. They hold winners for decades, allowing compounding to work its magic. And they do all of this without the emotional roller coaster most people experience. How do they do it? The secret is emotional detachment. It's a skill, not a trait. You can train it, and it starts with perspective. Before making a decision, ask yourself, if I didn't already own this, would I buy it at the current price? Imagine the money isn't yours yet. Imagine the investment is someone else's. When you remove emotional attachment, you see decisions clearly. Logic replaces fear. Reality replaces imagination. Let's go deeper. Imagine your portfolio drops 20% in a single month. Most people panic. They sell everything, locking in losses. But the wealthy? They ignore the noise. They don't check the portfolio daily. They don't compare themselves to friends. They focus on process, the quality of the companies, the fundamentals, and the long-term horizon. Short-term drops are opportunities, not disasters. Here's the paradox: the very instincts that make us survive in a dangerous world, fear of loss, desire for certainty, emotional attachment to past decisions, are the same instincts that prevent wealth accumulation. Every time you let fear dictate action, you hand money to those who act with calm rationality. Overcoming loss aversion isn't easy. Your brain resists. It screams at you to panic, to sell, to avoid risk at all costs. That's why it takes practice. But here's the beautiful part: Every time you act against that instinct and make a disciplined choice, your confidence compounds alongside your wealth. You train yourself to trust reason over emotion, strategy over panic. Here's a practical approach you can start today. Set decision rules beforehand. Before investing, decide your exit points, your evaluation process, and what constitutes a mistake. Stick to these rules. Detach emotionally. Pretend the money or investment isn't yours. Ask, would I still do this if I weren't attached? Focus on long-term process. Ignore daily swings, ignore gossip and tips, ignore short-term fear. Wealth builds over years, not hours. Practice small risks. Train your brain by taking small, calculated risks regularly. Each success reinforces rational behavior, each controlled mistake strengthens resilience. Loss aversion is powerful because it feels natural. It feels safe. But the wealthy know that real security comes not from avoiding all losses, but from making disciplined, calculated decisions that protect against catastrophic loss while allowing growth. By mastering this fourth trick, you no longer let fear run your financial life. Instead, you make decisions with clarity, courage, and discipline. Over decades, this mindset separates the wealthy from everyone else. The same $5,000 that terrifies most people could compound into $50,000 or more simply because you acted logically instead of emotionally. This is why the fourth trick is essential. It rewires your brain to see risk as information, not a threat. It transforms fear into foresight. And it sets the stage for the fifth trick, which builds on this foundation by teaching you to think in probabilities rather than certainties, further upgrading your decision-making system. If the fourth trick taught you how to overcome fear, the fifth trick teaches you how to think in terms of reality, not absolutes. Most people live in a world of black and white success or failure, right or wrong, win or lose. This kind of thinking is comfortable, simple, and dangerously misleading. It kills wealth. We call this all or nothing thinking, and it's a trap. A business either succeeds or fails. A stock either skyrockets or tanks. You're either a genius investor or a failure. But the truth? Life and money rarely operate in certainties. Wealth isn't built in absolutes, it's built in probabilities. The wealthy approach every decision differently. Instead of asking, will this succeed, they ask, what's the probability this will succeed? And what can I do to tilt those odds in my favor? They see the world in percentages, in likelihoods, in calculated risk. Here's why this matters. Imagine you want to start a business. A black and white thinker asks, will it succeed? That question demands a perfect yes or no answer. When certainty is impossible, fear wins. Paralysis sets in. The opportunity dies before it even begins. Now, imagine thinking probabilistically. You assess the market, your skills, your team, and resources. You determine, there's a 40% chance this business will succeed. I can improve that to 55% by hiring someone with expertise in marketing, and 60% if I also refine the product strategy. Probabilistic thinking doesn't demand certainty, it demands action based on likelihood. It tilts the odds in your favor. This approach underpins every major decision self-made billionaires have ever made. Warren Buffett doesn't ask, will this investment be perfect? He asks, what's the probability this company will grow steadily over decades? What are the risks? What's the potential upside? Then he acts based on favorable probabilities, not hope or hype. Here's a concrete example. Imagine you're evaluating two investments. Investment A has a 70% chance of doubling in value but a 30% chance of losing half. Investment B has a 50% chance of tripling but a 50% chance of total loss. A certainty-driven thinker avoids both, they're too risky. A probabilistic thinker runs the numbers, evaluates the expected value, and selects the option where the probability-adjusted gain is higher. Over time, these calculated choices compound into extraordinary wealth. The key isn't predicting the future perfectly, it's acting rationally in the face of uncertainty. Probabilistic thinking transforms the way you approach every financial decision, every business opportunity, every major life choice. Instead of being paralyzed by what if, you're guided by what's likely and what can I influence. Here's how to start today. Assign probabilities to decisions, every investment, every business decision, every job opportunity. Estimate the likelihood of success based on your knowledge and research. Quantify risks and rewards, don't just guess. Write down the potential outcomes and their probabilities. Multiply probability by potential reward to calculate expected value. Tilt the odds, take action to improve probabilities. Hire expertise, learn missing skills, or reduce uncertainty before committing resources. Track your predictions, keep a log of decisions, outcomes, and accuracy of your probability estimates. Over time, your intuition will sharpen, and your decisions will compound in your favor. Here's the brutal truth, the wealthy don't get lucky, they calculate likelihoods, they tilt probabilities, and they take repeated, rational action. You can start doing this today. Stop asking will it work, and start asking, what are the odds? How can I improve them? Is this worth taking? Over decades, thinking in probabilities rather than certainties compounds advantageously. Small, calculated gains become extraordinary wealth because you are no longer a slave to hope, fear, or instinct. You're acting logically in an uncertain world. Probabilistic thinking is the bridge from overcoming fear to making disciplined, strategic moves. It trains your brain to act when others freeze, to take smart risks when others panic, and to consistently make decisions that favor long-term wealth over short-term comfort. And now that your brain can see through fear and act in probabilities, it's time for the sixth mind trick, a deceptively simple tool that prevents catastrophic mistakes, the checklist method. This trick ensures your thinking never overlooks critical details, even when excitement or fear clouds your judgment. At first glance, a checklist might seem trivial, childishly simple even. But simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful. Most people think wealth is about brilliance, intuition, or catching the next big opportunity. They believe smart people make fewer mistakes because they're naturally gifted, or luck has smiled on them. That's wrong. Wealth isn't built by genius, it's built by avoiding catastrophic mistakes. And that's what the checklist does. It forces the brain to slow down, to think systematically, and to remove emotion from critical decisions. Here's the problem. When humans get excited, scared, or pressured, our brains stop functioning rationally. Cognitive shortcuts take over. We ignore key facts. We rationalize risks. We convince ourselves, this time is different. And every time someone falls for this, billions of dollars vanish. Checklists act as your defense. They are the manual for rational decision-making, applied every single time. Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, and every self-made billionaire use them not for inspiration, but for protection against their own flawed instincts. Let's make this concrete. Imagine you're about to invest in a company. Your brain is buzzing with excitement. The stock has gone up 30% in the last 3 months. Your gut whispers, buy now before it's too late. Your emotions are screaming, your ego is swelling, and your rational brain is on pause. This is where the checklist steps in. Before you spend a single dollar, the checklist forces you to ask, do I understand how this business makes money? Does it have a sustainable competitive advantage? Is management competent and honest? Is the price reasonable compared to intrinsic value? Would I be comfortable holding this for 10 years? Can I explain this business to a child? If the answer to any question is no, the checklist stops the decision. No exceptions. No rationalizations. No gut overrides. Here's why this works. The brain naturally overestimates patterns, underestimates risk, and exaggerates rewards when emotionally invested. The checklist removes the noise. It forces decisions based on logic, evidence, and probability, not excitement or social pressure. It's the ultimate fail-safe against human error. Let me share a story. Charlie Munger tells of investments he passed on because his checklist flagged a single unanswered question. Others jumped in, blinded by hype. Years later, those investments collapsed. By following his checklist, Munger avoided financial disaster. Over decades, these small, rational decisions compounded into billions of dollars. The key is preparation. The checklist must exist before the heat of the moment, not during it. If you create it while excited or panicked, it loses all power. You must have it ready, fully written, before opportunities arrive, so your brain can rely on it rather than emotion. Here's how you start today. Write your checklist, for investments, business decisions, career moves, even major purchases. Include critical questions only, focus on the questions that truly prevent catastrophic mistakes. Follow it religiously, no skipping, no rationalizing. If you can't answer a question honestly, don't proceed. Refine over time, as you gain experience, adjust your checklist. Remove redundant items, add insights, and make it sharper. The beauty of this trick is its compounding effect. Each time you apply the checklist, you avoid tiny errors. Over months, years, and decades, these avoided mistakes add up to enormous wealth. While others chase big wins and fail catastrophically, you quietly and consistently build a foundation that survives any market or crisis. In short, the checklist turns your human flaws into financial advantage. It ensures your brain never sabotages you when stakes are highest. You don't need genius to win in life, you need consistency, discipline, and systematic thinking. And now, with fear addressed, probabilities understood, and critical errors minimized, we arrive at the final mind trick, the seventh and perhaps most difficult: emotional detachment from short-term outcomes. This last trick will teach you how to remain calm, focused, and rational even when everything around you screams chaos, greed, or panic. This is the trick that separates the truly wealthy from everyone else, the one that most people will never master, because it goes against every instinct humans have spent millions of years developing. Our brains are wired to react immediately to danger, reward, or change. A sudden drop in your portfolio feels like a threat to your survival. A spike in stock prices feels like instant validation. These reactions are automatic. And in wealth building, they're deadly. Charlie Munger often says that wealth isn't built in the excitement of the moment, it's built in the quiet, patient decisions over decades. Yet most people can't resist the short-term pull. Imagine this: the stock market drops 20% in a month. Your portfolio shrinks by $100,000. Most people panic. They sell to stop the pain. They lock in losses because emotionally, they cannot bear the uncertainty. Conversely, when markets soar, people get euphoric. They take bigger risks, convinced their luck is intelligence. And both reactions, panic and greed, destroy wealth. Emotional detachment is the skill of staying flat, calm, and rational in the face of short-term fluctuations. It's the mental discipline to ignore noise and focus on long-term outcomes. Here's why this works. Short-term results are mostly random. Emotions distort decision-making. Reacting to daily gains or losses leads to mistakes: selling winners too early, holding losers too long, chasing the wrong opportunities. Munger's approach is brutally simple: ignore short-term outcomes. Focus on process. For example, say you invest $50,000 in a company you've researched thoroughly. A month later, it drops 15%. Most would panic. But if you follow Munger's principle, you ignore the price movement. You focus on whether the underlying business is still sound. You ask, would I buy this today if I didn't already own it? You hold only if the answer is yes, otherwise, you sell without regret. This is emotional detachment. It's not easy. It feels unnatural. Your instincts will scream. Friends will panic. Headlines will blare. But by learning to distance yourself from immediate outcomes, you gain clarity, control, and resilience. The long-term payoff is enormous. While others are reacting impulsively, selling their winners, and holding their losers, you are quietly compounding wealth. You are letting time work in your favor. Decades later, the result is staggering, not because you made perfect picks, but because you didn't make catastrophic errors driven by emotion. Let me give you a concrete example from history. During the 2008 financial crisis, most investors panicked. They sold everything, locking in devastating losses. Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, however, stayed calm. They invested in undervalued opportunities, ignored the media hysteria, and let the long-term growth play out. By the time the markets stabilized, their patience had multiplied their wealth. Emotional detachment wasn't just a strategy, it was the difference between financial disaster and unprecedented success. How do you start practicing this today? Stop checking your portfolio obsessively. Daily swings are noise, not signal. Ignore financial news hype. Headlines are designed to provoke emotion, not guide rational decisions. Focus on process, not price. Your checklist, circle of competence, and probability thinking are what matter. Detach ego from decisions. The portfolio doesn't define your intelligence. Markets fluctuate, your process does not. Accept uncertainty, the market is unpredictable. Your control is over how you respond, not what happens. Mastering this trick transforms how you think about money. You stop reacting. You start acting deliberately. You stop gambling on whims. You stop chasing validation. Instead, you become the calm force in a storm, letting compound growth work silently, powerfully, over years and decades. When combined with the 6 previous mind tricks: inversion thinking, circle of competence, opportunity cost, overcoming loss aversion, probabilistic thinking, and the checklist method, emotional detachment, completes the billionaire mindset. These 7 mental frameworks are not theories. They are mechanical operating instructions for your brain. They are the software that turns instinct into strategy, emotion into logic, and short-term chaos into long-term wealth. If you internalize these, you're no longer playing the financial game like everyone else. You're playing it like a billionaire, decades ahead of the crowd. And here's the final truth most people never admit: wealth isn't about luck, connections, or genius. It's about thinking differently, overcoming your brain's natural instincts, and compounding better decisions quietly over a lifetime. The good news: you can start today. The moment you stop relying on gut feeling, start questioning instinct, and apply these 7 mind tricks, your financial life begins to change. Slowly at first, then exponentially. The power isn't in making the perfect decision, it's in not making the stupid ones. And in 10, 20, 30 years, that difference compounds into wealth few will ever achieve. Charlie Munger's lesson is clear: the rules are simple. Most ignore them. But for those willing to rewire their thinking, to detach from short-term noise, to follow a system over emotion, and to compound better decisions over decades, the financial world is yours to master. If you want to rewire your financial instincts and see the world of money the way billionaires do, subscribe now. Every week, we uncover the hidden rules of wealth, the thinking patterns that create fortune quietly over decades. Don't just watch, learn, reflect, and let these insights reshape your life. Turn on notifications and start thinking differently today.